Hey, how are you? Guess what, guys? This is the last video, el último video. So we're going to finalize all of these lessons that I've been given to you on video. And I want to finalize with a concept dealing with our reflexive verbs. And this will be very mechanical if you study it. What I mean by that, what I'm getting ready to teach you is going to follow a very consistent structure. And if you follow this structure, then this should be no issue. So, if you remember back in previous weeks, we've studied in Spanish how if you have one verb in a sentence, you have to conjugate that verb, don't you? For example, I speak Spanish. Yo hablo español. Okay? But if I want to say something like, excuse me, let me scratch my back, okay? It's bothering me. If I want to say, I want to learn French, I can say, yo quiero aprender el francés. I want to learn French. You have two verbs, to want, querer, and to learn, aprender. So when you combine those together, what happens in Spanish is your first verb is changed or conjugated, and your second one, you're going to leave it alone. Well, guess what? We can do the same thing with reflexive verbs. We can have two verbs, and one of those could also be a reflexive verb. So let's take a look and see how we would deal with that should we come across two verbs in a sentence. One is just a regular verb and another one is a reflexive verb. Alright, so perhaps I would like to say something like, I need to wake up at 6 a.m. I need to wake up at 6 a.m. Okay, well, let's identify what we know. How do we say to wake up? You remember? That's right. Despertarse. All right. Well, how do we say to need? Do you remember that? To need is necesitar. Okay? So we have all the elements necessary to make this sentence. So, first of all, I need. How would we say I need? We would say yo necesito. Okay? Yo necesito. Well, now let's look here. We're dealing with despertarse. Okay? Now, when one verb is not reflexive and the other verb is reflexive, you're going to have two options of how you can write the sentence. And both of the options are completely correct. They're just two versions of the same thing. It's kind of like you and your brother or you and your sister. You are similar, but you're different as well. You've got the same family lineage, but you still are two distinct people. All right? So watch this. The first way that I can say I need to wake up is I can say that with the despertarse, I'm talking about myself. So if I'm talking about yo, what reflexive pronoun would I use when I'm just saying I wake up? I would say yo me despierto, right? But if I want to say I need to wake up, I still have to include that me in the sentence because it's part of the verb despertarse. So I can say yo me necesito despertar a las 6 de la mañana. So, yo me necesito despertar a las 6 de la mañana. And I'm sorry for my words running together right here. Those are separate words right there, okay? Yo me necesito Despertar a las 6 de la mañana. All right? Well, we have another way that I can say the very same thing. Okay? And it's related to this. It means the same thing, but it's just a different form. Again, it's kind of like you and your brother or you and your sister. You come from the same parents, but you have your distinct personalities and your distinct characteristics. So watch this right here. We can also say, yo necesito despertarme a las 6 de la mañana. Okay? So if you've noticed, guys, in this second sentence right here, what have I done? I have taken that me and I have attached it to that second verb. So that's your rule of thumb. If you have a sentence with two verbs in them, if one of those verbs is a reflexive verb, you can't just leave it alone. You've got to use it somehow. You've got to indicate that someone is doing something to him and herself. Otherwise, you wouldn't use a reflexive verb. So when I say that I need to wake up at 6 a.m., I know that I'm talking about myself. So since I'm talking about myself, then I have to use me, the reflexive pronoun me, to indicate that I am doing this to myself. I'm waking up myself. Now, the way that you place that me in the sentence is completely up to you as a speaker. And sometimes in classes it might be a requirement that you write it this way for a test or for another way, just so your instructors can know that you're familiar with both ways. Again, it just depends on what's being required of you. So again, look, you can put the me right in front of that first verb, which is necesito, or you can attach it directly to the second verb, despertar. Okay? When I say attach, I mean you have to attach it, meaning you have to make the me part of the word despertar. It just as if it's one word. You don't write despertar and then me. You write despertarme, one word. Okay? So those are two ways that you can combine a reflexive verb with a verb that's not a reflexive verb. Now, let's look at another example right here, because in this example, I say that I need to get up at 6 in the morning, okay? But let's say that you need to get up at 6 in the morning. Perhaps you have a job interview and maybe someone in your family is reminding you, you need to get up at 6 o'clock in the morning, okay? So if I am talking about you, all right, let's just use the familiar form, the informal form that we use when we're talking to friends, to people close to our own age, to buddies, people like that. We'll use tu. So if I want to say, you need to get up, okay, bam, 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 at 6 o'clock. I'm not going to write at 6 o'clock. It's important information, but that's not what I'm focusing on right now. So you need to get up at 6 o'clock, all right? So let's see the two ways we can write this. Tu, all right? Now, tu with need. How did we write you need? Tu necesitas, okay? Okay. So, to get up is what? Despertarse, right? Well, despertarse means to get up, but I need to show that relationship for you. So what reflexive pronoun would I need that corresponds to tu? It wouldn't be me, wouldn't be se, wouldn't be nos, but for tu, the only reflexive pronoun that would correspond to that would be te. You got it. So you can say, tú te necesitas despertar. Tú te necesitas despertar, where the te is coming directly in front of that first verb. All right? That's one option. You can also write this in another way. Tú necesitas, all right? And then what are we going to do to despertar? We're going to attach the te to it. So tú necesitas despertarte. Okay? And that's written as one word. Tú necesitas despertarte. Guys, both of those sentences are equal. They mean the same thing. It's just a different form. I like to use this example in class. It's kind of like this. I'll is the same thing as I will. Isn't that right? It's the same thing. It means the same thing. It's just a different form. So that same thing is the case for numbers 1 and 2. Neither one is more correct than the other in Spanish. It's just a matter sometimes of preference. Perhaps in some families, some people have used one form more over than the other. I've heard Hispanics flip back and forth. You may start one sentence using one form and you might end the sentence with another form. Sometimes it's just what comes to your mind first. Okay? But again, I want you to remember this little rule should you see this in any type of activity for the online work or anything else. Okay? Guys, take care. I'll see you soon. Gracias.